Okay, so I think we can start now, and if anyone still joins, then they'll be joining, but I think we're mostly here. So hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Veronica, and I am marketing specialist at Extrakt.AI, and today I will be your host. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to demonstrate how to automate metadata in SharePoint, and we'll take the example of contracts. So let me go through the agenda first. First, we'll go through the introduction, and after that we are going to build a demo and a workflow automation. So you'll see exactly how to populate SharePoint with the metadata from the contracts. And at the end, we've reserved some time for Q&A. And if you have any questions, you can ask them while we are presenting, and we'll answer them at the Q&A section. We are today also joined by a guest speaker, Tyler Wasson. I think you can all already see him. He's a Microsoft Power Platform specialist, and he's a independent contractor who specializes in the Microsoft Power Platform. That includes Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps. His career spans over 20 years in the private sector. He worked in retail, manufacturing, and information technology. I've put some of his socials and his emails so you can contact him with any questions you might have. Let me first tell you how we decided to make this webinar. Our clients reached out to us and told us that their workflow was going through contracts, just like you can see here on the screen, manually. So they were copy-pasting the values and putting them into their SharePoint library manually, and then first they would upload the contract and then they would populate the items. They used Extrakt.AI and it helped them automate a lot, but they wondered if there was a possibility to get the metadata from Extrakt.AI directly into SharePoint library. So we reached out to Tyler, asked him if there's a possibility to do this, and he said yes. So this is what we're going to show you today. Tyler, thank you for joining us. Yes, would you like to say a couple of words?
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. Yeah, happy to be here. And happy to work with you on this Power Automate flow that we're going to demonstrate today. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
So, okay. Yeah, let me start by sharing my screen, and then we can walk you through how we would continue on from this process.
No, so I'm going to start with my part at Extrakt.AI.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yes, and so first I will show you. So the first thing we do is go to Extract.AI app. So let me first just give you an outlook of essentially what we're going to build. I can see it fell out. So this was our client's process before, and what we're essentially doing today is we're taking the attachment from your email and sending it to Extrakt.AI, where you will get the metadata and then Power Automate, the flow that Tyler will create. The Power Automate will take that metadata that will be sent to your email and automatically populate SharePoint library with it. So the first thing we have to do is go to Extract.AI app, and we go right here, create a template, and we can create a custom template here. When you're naming your template and your fields, make sure everything is spelled correctly. So capital letters, just everything has to be the same as it is in SharePoint. Your SharePoint, because otherwise it won't work. So let's say, for example, here, and I'll just do the same here, and you can put here anything you want to get from your contract. So in my case, that will be contract number. Here I will just change it to the list so it's easier to see. And then let's say date of signing. We also want to know if the contract has been signed. So signed by vendor and signed by customer. Okay. All that's left is to click create. And now Tyler needs for his flow JSON. You will only have to do this once. So we're going to upload our contract here. And we're going to click extract. And so what Tyler is going to do, he will get the JSON file and he will show you in the Power Automate where you have to put it. You'll only have to do this once, and then once that is done, you won't have to do it again. We can see that we got the extraction right here, and Tyler will get this JSON file that we've downloaded, and he will now show you where and how exactly to put it in the Power Automate. So Tyler, I'm passing you the word.
Okay. One second. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So, like Veronica was saying, we have a SharePoint document library. This is an example of it. We're going to want to be saving that contract into our document library, and then we're going to be, so from the scrape metadata that the Extrakt.AI service gathered, we're going to be populating it here in 4 separate columns in our document library. So the contract number, the date of signing, whether it was signed by the vendor and whether it was signed by the customer. So I'm going to walk you through the Power Automate flow that we have set up so that instead of having to do that manually, we can have it done completely automatically. So I have for when you're doing a Power Automate flow, the very first item is your trigger. In this case, I have it set up to be when a new email arrives. So I have
This is the automated flow, right?
Sorry, yeah, this is our automated flow in Power Automate. We start off with a trigger. So I have it set up in my Outlook so that when I would receive the email from Extrakt.AI, the AI service, that I have a rule set up so that it'll move it into a specific folder. The folder is called Extrakt.AI. And then when the full email goes into that folder, that's what initiates the flow. So this is what we call our trigger. And then our first action in the flow is going to be setting up a variable. So we're using what's called the initialize variable action. We're giving the variable a name. We're calling it PDF file ID. It's going to be a type of integer, and we're actually not storing any value in it initially. And the purpose of this is we want to be able to, when we save the contract to our document library, we want to be able, or there's a specific record ID. So we need to identify where it's saved in the document library, and we're going to save it in our variable. So our next step, we have what's called an apply to each action. So you can think of this as a repeat loop. So what we want to do is be able to, in the email that we receive, go through all of the attachments. And
so is there like a limit number of attachment that it will go through, or it will go through every single one of them?
Yeah, it's set up to go through all of them. So no matter how many there are.
Okay.
And to set up your apply to each, so when you're working with Power Automate, most of the steps will either have what's called dynamic content. So we can pull information from the previous steps in our flow, or we can write specific expressions. And then even within your expressions, you can also add dynamic content. But for this flow, most of it's just going to be from dynamic content. So we want to go through and look for all of our attachments that are that came from our email. So that's what we have here. And then within our apply to each action, we have what's called a condition. And we want to identify which of the files in the attachments are PDFs. And to do that, we want to look for the file name. So again, we'll use dynamic content from our email, and we want to identify our attachment name that ends with, and we've written in here .pdf. So there's multiple criteria that we can add, but we just want all the files that end with .pdf. If it's false, then we're going to do nothing. If it's true, then we want to save that file to our SharePoint document library. And to do this, we'll use the SharePoint create file action. We would add our site address, and you can find that by going to your SharePoint site and highlighting the first part of your URL just past the word sites. It should be the name of your SharePoint site. You can paste it in here, or you can also select from an existing list that you have access to. And then for the folder path, it's going to be under your shared documents. So you would click on the folder here, look for your shared documents. And in this case, I have a separate document library. It's just called Extrakt.AI. So that's what we would use. And we're going to use dynamic content for our file name, as we did previously under our email. And then for our file content, again with dynamic content. And we want to look for the attachments content. It says contents bytes here, but it's really looking for the attachments name, or I'm sorry, attachments content. When you run a flow, a lot of times there's certain items that will get renamed, but that's just Power Automate being Power Automate. So, and then now that we've saved our file to SharePoint, we can now identify where it's saved in the document library. So we're going to use what's called the set variable action. So this is going to essentially overwrite the existing value in our variable, which is at the moment nothing. So we're selecting from our dropdown of the available variables. We only have the one, which is our PDF file ID. And for its value, we're going to select from our create file, our SharePoint create file action, the body / item ID.
Okay, so what we're getting from this condition save PDF is basically the physical file, PDF file will be saved to our SharePoint, correct?
It's going to be saved to our SharePoint, and then from the variable, we're going to know which record in our document library it is saved to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because we'll need that for when we need to save our additional columns.
Okay.
Going forward. Yep. So that concludes this apply to each. We have our PDF now. Now we want to identify our JSON file. And to do that, we've set up another apply to each, essentially repeat loop, going through all of our attachments. We have another condition, but this time, instead of the name ending with .pdf, we have it ending with .json. So if it doesn't meet that criteria, we do nothing. If it is true, we are going to do two data operations. The first is called a compose action, which essentially allows us to manipulate the existing data. So we're going to use an expression in this case. So we would use the expression editor. And our expression is called base 64 to string. So when an email is sent, the attachments in the email are typically converted to a base 64 format. And in order for Power Automate to work with it, we need to convert it to a string. So that's the purpose of this action here. So we're using the base 64 string, and then the item, and then the content bytes. If you remember before, that's essentially what our attachment content is. So we're going to convert our content from a base 64 format to a string. And then our next action, our next data operation is called parse JSON. And essentially what this allows us to do is take our existing JSON string and then break it up into specific components or objects that we can turn around and save independently into the columns in our document library. And to do that, we're going to want to go to pull our output from our previous action. So under our compose action, we want our output. And then, as Veronica mentioned earlier in our webinar, I would have the JSON file. So essentially, I would take the file, copy its content. This is what it would look like.
Yeah, this is the file we downloaded before, right? From the
correct. So this is what we would have downloaded. And as Veronica said, we would only need to do it the one time. You would select done here, and then it's going to essentially set up a schema so that we can reuse as long as the JSON file is in this specific format, then we can extract the data from it. So that's our parse JSON action. And so now that we've parsed it, we have the individual components of it. We want to save those components to our columns here in our document library. So to do that, we have our SharePoint update file properties action. We have our site address, which we can get from our site, our SharePoint site. In our dropdown, you're probably only going to see documents. It's not the same as the previous one, but that'll just be your default, which is fine. And then for your ID, now we get to use our variable. So under our dynamic content, we can look for our variable. There should only be one, and we have our PDF file ID. So that's going to allow us to save it in the specific location where our PDF was saved. And then lastly, of this action, when we select our site address, it should automatically populate underneath with the columns that were previously added to our document library. So we should automatically see these columns in our selection here. So we do have our contract number, our date of signing, our signed by vendor, and our signed by customer. And now we get to pull that information from our previous action, the parse JSON action. So we can add the body of the contract number, the body of the data signing, the body of the contract signed by vendor, and signed by customer. So that pretty much wraps it up for our explanation on how to run our flow.
Okay, so
how to set up our flow.
So initially, the first part would be for getting the PDF, and the second part would be for getting the metadata from the PDF, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that metadata came from what was scraped from the Extrakt.AI service.
Okay, so now we'll go back to Extract, to the app. Okay, so we are back at Extrakt.AI app, and we can use the template, the process template that we made. Now, you would usually forward your email with the attachment to this unique email address, but today, for the purpose of this demo, we are just going to drag and drop our file right here. So you can see this is the same contract I had before, but now it should be uploaded to SharePoint and metadata should populate the SharePoint library list. Okay, so we click extract. And now we'll switch back to Tyler's end.
Okay.
Okay, I can see some questions have been coming in. That's great. We'll answer them. I think Tyler already got the... Let's see, I think it should be... If not, maybe we can answer one question. Let's see.
Yeah, I just got your email, so...
Okay, perfect. So it should be anytime. Great.
Yep. So this is the screen that we use for monitoring your flows, and you can see the previous run history, and then we can actually see the results of it. So this was one that we just did. As of today, it took 3 seconds, actually less than 3 seconds to run. If we click into it, we can actually see the process. So each green check box here was a success. So our second attachment was our PDF, and then our first attachment was our JSON file, and you can see here everything was successfully populated. And if we come back to our SharePoint document library, you can see that we just received this contract. It has the contract number, data signing, and both the customer and the vendor had signed off on it.
Okay, wonderful. So this is whenever they would forward the contract or to the Extrakt.AI app, the Power Automate flow would run through and then just populate automatically the SharePoint library.
Correct.
Great. This is all from, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, I just think it's important to note like the efficiency of the Extrakt.AI service. Like, so you just uploaded the contract, you identified what you wanted just by writing it on a few different places, and then it knew how to go and extract that information. So I just think that's a really amazing service, especially in comparison to like having to go and train a model yourself in order to do that. So right out of the box, it knew which ones to get, and it made it really easy to set up the flow based on that.
Yeah, I mean, even the flow looks complicated because I know I've done it, but once you understand the steps, it's super easy. So Power Automate, I think they work really well together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now we're going to go, this is all as far as the tutorial is concerned, and we will move on to Q&A. Let's see, we already have some questions. The first one is, can we also cover other use cases, for example, delivery notes? That's a great question. Let me show you. I will share my screen. Yes, you can actually, with Extrakt.AI, do this with a lot of documents. Just here, there are quite a few templates already pre-made. So, for example, you can use it for order confirmation, sales quotations, purchase orders, and of course, delivery notes as asked, bill of lading. So there's a lot, but if you don't find something that you would want here under pre-made templates, you can always just create your own. Yes, so let's see the next question. Do we need a template for each type of document? You do need a template for each type, but you don't need a template, for example, for the contracts. So once you create a template for your contract, that template stays. But if you want, you can create a template. You have to create a purchase order and separately, of course, order confirmation, because in each template you define different fields that you would like extracted. I hope I've made that clear.
I would just want to comment on that. It's like in using other AI services, like we would have to go and identify exactly where on the contract we would need to extract that information so that the AI service would know going forward and train it against different contracts. But in your service, you literally just highlight or identify the specific information you need, and it knows which part of the contract to pull out.
Yes.
I think is really cool.
Yes, I mean, naming it so AI knows, naming it correctly is always a good thing, but yeah, it usually identifies like very well. We have a link to the free trial if anybody wants to try the Extract.AI app. It's right here, and if you want, we will send also the Tyler. Do you think it's possible to get the zip file of Power Automate flow?
Yeah, I can provide that.
Okay, so after the webinar we will be sending you a package of we'll include the free link trial and the zip file of Power Automate. So then you would just have to change the library right to your own library.
Yeah, so you can just import it into your Power Automate environment, and then all you would need to do at that point is update the links to your SharePoint site, and then it in turn, based on if you had other specific columns, it should update based on that.
Perfect. And that's it. So thank you very much for joining us. That's all from our side. You have our email here. We will also include in the email that we will be sending you Tyler's information. Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Also, this webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube page, to Tyler's YouTube page. So if you want to go and really step by step do it, make sure you check it out. Okay, that's it. Well, thank you, and we will see you in the next webinar. Bye.
Bye.